We're going to talk a little about the economic trends and what's going on. I think, as you guys know, it's not the most enjoyable economic picture to talk about right now. We see the GDP. GDP is positive as long as you don't include inflation, but once you throw inflation in, real GDP has actually been negative. A lot of talks about whether we're in a recession or not. It used to be a technical recession, used to be 2 consecutive negative quarters, but we're in a strange situation where we still have positive employment growth with negative quarters, which strange situation makes sense because we had a recession where incomes actually went up 11% in the first year in 2000. So it's been a very strange economy right now. Most of the economic models, we say these are off-model events, which means nothing really explains things. So we have average employment change in the Portland metro area is actually looking quite good. We came off a deep bottom though, so we just recently have exceeded our previous numbers, but the numbers have been very strong. Looking against the national, both the state and the Portland metro area have outperformed the nation prior to the recession, and then coming out of the recession again, roughly the same ratios. If we take a look at who's actually added jobs, the last one with all the job growth is mining, logging, and construction. It was not mining and logging, so that's largely construction associated with that. But professional business services really broad-based, and government's actually down in employment, which is a bit unusual, but that tends to be a counter-cyclical. They tend to actually hold up early in recessions and then decline later because the incomes that drive it, those impacts come later. Unemployment rates, extremely low unemployment rate. A lot of this is labor force participation because we had a lot more people. We don't have a lot more jobs, but we have a much lower unemployment rate, which just means we've got some labor force participation issues coming in. A lot of it probably pandemic related and people changing how their behavior is. There's a piece in the thing from Josh Lehner talking about household formation. That's going to be one of the big issues hitting the rental apartment markets. Is we've been driven by demand, had extraordinary demand the last cycle because of household formation, which means basically 2 households becoming 3 households, 1 household becoming 2 households, people getting their own apartments, people moving out of their parents' basements, all the things you want to see that drive the apartment market. We're going to start to see with inflation and reduced real wages, some move back towards people coalescing and maybe getting more roommate situations again, not because they're preferred, because they have to do it. At the same time, the ownership market has gotten away from everybody, which actually is good for rental apartment market because you don't have options of where to go. You may not have that much household formation growth, but they're going to be renting for a longer period of time. 30-year mortgage rates up. This is obviously one of the major impacts on the ownership housing market. The cost of ownership housing, we've been underproducing systemically now for over a decade. We just don't have enough ownership housing, although if the interest rates stay this high, we may have enough because the demand's going to drop off a lot. We're not seeing drops in prices because we still have very limited market times, and we're complaining because the market time prior to the interest rate rises was five days on market, average days on market. So if someone has to wait 15 days, they're still not at a point where they're giving up on price yet. Regional mobility is baseline. I think if people read the stuff that talked about people coming back to downtown Portland, and it's just basically based on tracked cell phone data. And it shows that Portland's one of the areas where people are not coming down. San Francisco and Portland were the 2 worst in the country as far as activities post-pandemic in their downtown areas. Now, I don't know, maybe the homeless don't have cell phones as much, so we have a lot of activity down there, I can attest to, but it's not exactly what you want all the time. But we are seeing, obviously, parks are doing great. It's a great time for parks. I have no idea what the transit's doing. I haven't seen any numbers from TriMet. I doubt they want to release any numbers. It doesn't seem like the transit's going to work very well if nobody's commuting. And so what we're seeing now is the suburbs, average rents in the suburbs now are equivalent to downtown. Now you get a larger unit for that. The per square foots aren't the same, but this is an anomalous situation, but it's because the suburbs have had pricing power, the downtown has not. That's going to have to change over time because of replacement costs. The type of housing we do downtown costs more per square foot to deliver, and you need higher rents to make that stuff underwrite. But at the same time, when you get this virtuous cycle going where downtown is marketable and desirable so that people want to be down there so we can get the rents to justify the new construction over time. But for the next few years, I think it's going to be a bit of a slog in the urban areas on the rents. The other issue is we still have 50,000 units in our pipeline that we're tracking. A lot of units. almost 15,000 of them in Clark County. If you've been up to Clark County lately and you haven't been there for a while, it's a very different place. Clark County is absolutely booming right now, and it's been a big market. We still have a lot of urban stuff in the pipeline and going through. The suburbs, we actually still don't have a huge amount of supply in the burbs coming through. So we expect estimated deliveries to peak out about 10,000 in 2024. That's not actually that much. In reality, we normally will absorb 7,000, 8,000 a thing, and we're below 5% vacancy. So that's not like a huge overbuild. It seems like a huge amount of supply, but a lot of these projects are going to probably fall out and won't make it through. And so don't expect them all to hit the market. So our summary, inflation dominant theme. That's the economy right now. The economy is inflation right now, unfortunately. And the responses to the inflation, you've got the Fed has to tightening money supply or tightening anti-inflation policy, but it's a bit like chemotherapy. You try to kill part of the patient, but not the whole patient. The Fed almost always kills the patient. So watch this. We talk about soft landing. Soft landing means the chemo worked. Hard landing means it's not going to work. We're probably betting on the hard landing, and I think that's become the consensus point. There's still people that are more positive about it. Pandemic changes are likely persistent. The way people are behaving is probably going to hold on. We're seeing demographic shifts. We have to always worry about in-migration, but we're also worried about household formation. And there's a lot of pressure points still on rents. So rents we're actually expected to continue to go up because there's really very little reason to expect rents are going to go down. Everything is putting pressure to go upward on rent right now. So I don't think it's a bad situation as long as we continue to get in-migration and get some level of positive employment growth. I don't think it's going to be a deep recession, but I do think we're heading to one if we're not already in one. So, thanks.